Welcome back, everyone. It's Aric from Raikou. Hope you guys had a great Christmas and holiday season. But today I am back and we're going to be checking out not all of the 400 cards, but some of the new cards from the recent Start 100 decks that came out in Japan. You know, these cards got revealed while I was sick a couple weeks back, so I never made a video covering them. So I wanted to at least check them out here while they're still a little bit fresh on our mind. So if you guys are unfamiliar with this product that Japan got, it's 100 different decks that are coming out. They each have 60 cards, and a lot of them are actually new cards that are going to come out in our Brilliant Stars set in February. So it is important to catch up on these and kind of get an idea of what we might be getting in a few months from now. But yeah, there are going to be a lot of reprints. I'm assuming those are also going to be in the set. You can see some of the alternate art reprints that we're getting here. Now we are actually getting some important reprints as well. As you can see, some of these important trainer cards like Boss's Orders, Professor's Research, Rare Candy, of course, are going to be getting proper reprints to be legal for another couple of years. But of course, you guys want to see the new cards that we're going to be getting in the sets. That's what we are going to be checking out today. I'm going to give you my initial thoughts on these things, but of course, once my Brilliant Star set review comes out, you know, in a month or so, I'll have more in-depth thoughts on all of these cards then as well. But of course, guys, before we get into this, be sure to like this video to help feed the YouTube algorithm. Make sure you subscribe with those notifications turned on, and let's check out these new cards from the Start Deck 100. So up first, we actually have a new Raikou V, it looks like. The last one was kind of interesting, but as you guys know, hasn't really done a whole lot, so we'll have to see how this one's going to be. First attack is interesting though. Grass for 30 and does 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So this is like a reprint of what we saw with Landorus EX and also a little bit more recently Buzzwole GX, both very, very impactful cards for their time. Now, I will say HPs have grown a little bit since even Buzzwole GX came out. You know, when that came out, the most popular Pokemon with the highest HP was probably around 230, but now we have HPs going all the way up to, you know, 300 plus. So this attack is a little bit weaker, but I still don't want to undersell how good this attack has been in the past. But its other attack, 2 Grass and a Colorist, is 120. And if your opponent's active is a V, it does 120 more. Okay, so effectively this is 240 almost all the time, which is pretty nice. Now, unfortunately, because of this attack cost, that does mean we're gonna have to probably play something like Rillaboom, which is definitely still doable. I mean, it's just a stage 2 that you have to get out and play. But assuming you can do that, I think Zerd's actually not horrible. I guess primarily because we have V-Star Pokemon coming out, which actually kind of fall into a nice HP range for this guy. Like, you can already knock out most of the 2 prize Pokemon out there. Save for, unfortunately, Zacian V, you are going to be 10 short. I mean, you're 1 damage modifier away from knocking out Zacian. But, well, I guess I should say, but with this first attack here, you can soften up things like Zacian, and of course, like I said, the new V-Star Pokemon to put them in range of this second attack. So actually, I think this is probably fine. Now, again, Rillaboom really hasn't been doing that much recently, and I'm not sure if that's going to change after this thing comes out, but I actually don't think this card is completely awful. So up next, we have the second of the legendary dogs. Of course, we got Suicune V not too long ago, but we have Entei V up next. And Raikou V, I do remember as well, is very similar to this guy. But Entei, 230 HP, Water Weakness, 3 Retreat, and if you'll notice, it does have the same ability as Suicune. If you are in the active spot, you can draw a card, and actually has the same attack as Suicune V as well, 20 plus 20 for each bench Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's. So we have seen, you know, Suicune do very, very well. You know, ever since its release, and on paper, I think you might expect Entei to do something similar. There's definitely some pros and cons to Entei compared to Suicune. It does have a little bit more HP, but the trade-off is that you have a 3 retreat cost, and Air Balloon is not going to be quite as efficient with this thing. Because one thing that's nice about Suicune, in theory, you can, you know, promote it after something gets knocked out, draw a card with the ability, and then maybe retreat into like an Ice Rider Calyrex or something else entirely. Entei does not quite have that same luxury going for it. You know, energy acceleration wise, Entei is actually kind of similar because you guys have to remember we do have a new stadium coming out in Brilliant Stars as well. That will allow you to accelerate fire energy from discard to your benched fire Pokemon, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, there's definitely something there to make sure you can get your Enteis powered up, since, you know, fire really has been lacking good energy acceleration for recent sets. I guess you could even build Entei the same way you would build, for example, like a Suicune deck. You can play Suicune with some copies of Ice Rider Calyrex as like a backup attacker. You could do the same thing and play Entei with like Victini VMAX or Chandelure VMAX, and just like she's like a fire version of Suicune. So this thing seems okay. I don't really know where I stand on it just yet, especially since we don't have the entire Brilliant Stars, you know, set revealed at the time of recording, at least. But this thing, it does have potential. The 3 retreat cost is the big thing that I don't like about Entei, though. I really wish this was a 2 retreat. But other than that, it's still an okay card. Let's see. The next interesting card is a Semi-Seer. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's cool that Pokemon is giving like ultra rare and Pokemon V representation to Pokemon who normally don't get that much love, but did it have to be Semi-Seer? Like, does anyone actually like Semi-Seer? So I can't help but wish this was a different fire Pokemon that doesn't give a lot of love, like my boy Infernape. Something like that would have been cooler than Semi-Seer, that's for sure. But anyways, that aside, let's check out what this card does. So 210 HP, water weakness, 1 retreat. First attack 20, you may attach up 2 basic energy cards from your hand to your Pokemon any way that you like. And its other attack 90, does 30 more for each energy attached to your opponent's active. So if they have what, a 3 energy on their active, what, 30, 60, 90, so you're hitting 180 for 3. Not the best in the world. I think the Entei we just looked at is going to be a little bit better than that most of the time. Now, this first attack is kind of cool. You can get some energy acceleration while getting in some chip damage. So this, in theory, could be good for some sort of dragon-based deck that uses fire energy where you're playing multiple different types of energy. And, you know, fire doesn't really have a lot of options right now for energy acceleration. We have, of course, Victini V, which accelerates energy out of discard, which can be a little bit tricky to pull off, like on the first turn of the game when you really want to use an attack like that. So this attack actually might even be like slightly better than Victini V, because I think on turn 1 and maybe turn 2 at the worst, energy is going to be easier to accelerate from hand than discard. So it has that going for it, but I think this is a pretty low impact card overall. All right, next up, we're getting into some reveals that we actually had a while back. We have Kingler V and V Max. So both cards are kind of similar if my memory serves me correctly. Yeah, first attack for a water, you flip a coin of heads, search your deck for 5 water energies, and attach them to your Pokemon any way that you like, then shuffle your deck. So that's pretty good acceleration. Coin flip, of course, is the big issue. And then 200, this Pokemon takes 30. Let's see Kingler V Max. So, oh yeah, the same first attack, but without a coin flip, which makes sense since you are a V Max. And then 240, this Pokemon does 30 to itself. But the issue I have with like a pair of Pokemon like this is that this attack on Kingler V Max is actually good, but it's not good on a V Max, because this is the type of attack you really want to be using on like the first turn of the game, going second or something like that. But if you have to wait to evolve into Kingler V Max to guarantee this effect, that feels really bad. So if you are trying to build around Kingler V instead as a form of energy acceleration, now your stadium of choice has to, it's like almost forced to be Glimwood Tangle to be able to guarantee, or, you know, help guarantee at least this 5 energy acceleration that we have here. And then from there, you have probably 4 copies of Glimwood Tangle in your deck. So I almost would kind of want to see you build around coin flip based water Pokemon, which sounds really bad. That way you're actually getting value out of these stadiums in, you know, longer than just the first turn or so. I know we have, was it Dreadnought VMAX? That one has a decent attack on a coin flip. You know, I'd have to comb through the card pool a little bit. My memory is a little bit hazy. I don't usually keep track of coin flip Pokemon. Most are usually really bad. So that is something to keep in mind. But, you know, in theory, you pull off this attack once, you probably never have to worry about energy acceleration the rest of the game. Between this attack and your attachments, you're probably going to be good to go. But again, needing Glimwood Tangle to play this kind of forces you into like weird deck building scenarios where you kind of probably should play coin flip Pokemon to be able to get the most value out of the other cards in your deck. So it's a very long-winded way of saying these cards aren't that cool. I mean, I think they're interesting, but I'm not sold on them being very competitive as of yet, at least. All right, so up next we have another Pikachu V. Guys, I feel like in the last 6 months or even like a year, we've had like a billion Pikachu V get revealed between Vivid Voltage, all of the Pikachu V box promos, celebrations, and this one now, which actually is, I think, going to be a box promo, not in Brilliant Stars. But yeah, we have a crap ton of Pikachu Vs. Let's see if this one's actually worth anything. So just one attack here, it does 100. You may discard all lightning attached to this Pokemon. If you do, does 120 more. Okay, so 220, not a bad number to hit for, guys. I mean, that one-shots most 2-prize Pokemon. And of course, that comfortably 2-shots any 3-prizers as well. Yeah, I don't think this is too special. If we're trying to hit around 200-ish, I think the Raikou V we're about to look at is probably going to be a little bit better. Or even just Tapu Koko V. And if you're playing Pikachu V Max, this is not the preferred Pikachu that you should be playing. There's other ones with better attacks to help you get set up. So this card, definitely not the best Pikachu, but I'm sure there's collectors out there that will be excited for this thing. But next up, as I just alluded to, we do have Raikou V to round out our legendary beast trio finally. And as you guys can expect, this is basically just the lightning version of Suicune V. Same ability, same attack, but of course we are using lightning energy instead of water energy. And one big change from Entei, I guess, and Suicune as well, it does have a 1 retreat cost instead of the 2 and 3 retreat costs of its fire and water counterparts as well. Suicune's already a decent card. This is a decent card kind of as a result. You know, we do have lightning energy acceleration, so we can get this thing powered up. Though, do I really want to play Flaffy? I really don't. You know, if I could just play, like, I would much prefer the Suicune sort of engine and, toolbox of cards as opposed to using Raikou here. Now, one good thing about Raikou, of course, you can hit Suicune for weakness. That's one thing this does have going for it, but it does have a fighting weakness, which is sketchy right now. And also Flaffy's being these low HP bench hitters also does not bode too well for Raikou as well. Now, one thing I do like about this card that I will say is this could, in theory, if Rayquaza VMAX ever does finally sort of break into the metagame a little bit, this could be a decent one of, because you can actually hit for a pretty solid chunk of damage without needing to commit a ton of energy to this thing. Because with Rayquaza, you know, you are really grinding to get every last energy possible on those Rayquazas, and it's it can be hard to power up another attacker to have in play as well. And Raikou could be a low energy, manageable way at getting some chip damage in and setting up some KOs for your Rayquazas. And also, this is a great Pokemon to promote between turns because of this ability. So that's one area where we could see this. We also could see, of course, like an Aurora Energy based like toolbox of all of these legendary beasts as well. Just because, of course, there are things that are weak to each of them. You know, Raikou, of course, does hit things like Entei VMAX, or, Suicune V, more importantly, for weakness. Entei hits things like, Zacian V. Suicune hits things like Victini VMAX, etc., etc. So there could be a world where some sort of toolbox version of these Pokemon does sort of come together. But, Raikou, like I said, in the case of Entei, these are basically like copycats of a card that is already pretty decent. So there is a world where this could pop up and see some play. So up next, we do have Granble V. So let's check this thing out. Psychic Pokemon, 210 HP, Metal Weakness, 2 retreat cost. First attack, 30 plus 10 for each damage counter on this Pokemon. Then 190, this Pokemon does 30 to itself. Yikes. So Granble, unfortunately, is really bad. This first attack is a little bit flexible because it's colorless. That does mean we can play this and, theoretically in a couple different styles of decks. But the fact that you need energy on yourself to be able to do any substantial amount of damage is a huge red flag. Even with Cape of Toughness, there's quite a few decks that will be able to take one-shots on this thing. And if you're not able to capitalize on this first attack, you're just left with another attack that does 190 for 3. And guys, for attacking with a psychic basic attacker, there's plenty of other good ones out there. Or we could just easily play Shadow Rider and call it a day and be completely content with how that will work out for us. So Granble V, really low impact card. Maybe if this gets VMAX, this could become good, but yeah, right now this card's really bad. All right, so we do have a new Flygon line. Of course, I am definitely down to get some new Stage 2 Pokemon. Doesn't appear to be anything too special about its pre-evolutions, but let's check this guy out here. So, 150 HP, Grass Weakness 1, Retreat Cost. First attack does 50 for each energy in your opponent's active Pokemon's Retreat Cost. So this is just a worse version of Leafeon V Max, it seems like. Like, this is a really puzzling card. Like, I don't know why this is a Stage 2. This is inherently much more difficult to get out and play than Leafeon, but it's weaker. I guess like the trade-off is that it attacks for 1 energy compared to Leafeon's 2, but Leafeon V kind of mitigates that entirely. So really bizarre way that they designed this thing. This definitely should have been like 80 times or something like that. But of course, guys, you can play this with Gaur Mine to, you know, do more damage with your Flygons. If they have it, what, a 4 retreat cost, that's 200. That 2-shots everything. So, I mean, I think you can build a functioning Flygon deck. I just don't think it's going to be particularly good. Does have another attack, does 110, but I mean, who cares? The first attack is almost always going to be hitting a little bit harder. So yeah, not a great card. This definitely could be one that makes it into my redesigning card series. If you guys did miss the first video I did for that, I'll have a link on screen and down below in the description where I redesign cards that come out in a set. So this could definitely make its way into that, but yeah, very weak card. Definitely don't expect anything from Flygon. At least right now. Okay, now we're talking, guys. We have Liepard. Now, this is a little bit better than some of the other stuff we've looked at so far. So, has the trade ability back from Zoroark GX, and of course, right now, Cinccino has the Make Do ability. Same thing. You discard a card from your hand, then draw 2 cards. Fantastic ability. Attack basically doesn't matter. But Cinccino is more likely going to rotate this coming summer. So it's nice that we will have another option, kind of like that still in the format. Now, the issue this thing does have, it is not level ball searchable, whereas Cinccino is. So that's definitely a strike against this thing. But yeah, I definitely think you'll wind up seeing Liepard in competitive decks at some point. You even could, of course, play this in Eternatus VMAX as well. You can toss away those dark energies to get back with your Galarian Moltres V. And if your opponent is hitting you with something like a Path to the Peak, you do have a draw engine to help you, bail you out of those dead hands, whenever you can't play Crobat Vs and stuff like that. So definitely fully expect Liepard to see play at some point. Just right now, it's kind of up in the air what deck that might just be. Now we do have more Peko V, and this art, I gotta say, is absolutely A tier. I love the way this little guy looks. But let's see, 190 HP. See, Bite and Run, 30. You may switch this with one of your benched Pokemon. And then 120, if you played Marnie's Prod from your hand during this turn, this attack does 120 more damage. So first hack is interesting for sure. You can technically use the new Turbo Double Energy, whatever it's going to be called. That's going to come out, but that does reduce you down to 10 damage, which feels really bad. So, you're probably using like Moltres and Energy Switch to get this thing going, or just abandoning Dark Energy altogether and using some other engine. But I don't think I don't think 30 is going to be enough without some sort of damage buff to build around this first attack. The second attack, not too great either. Marnie's Pride, if I remember right, it's like accelerating energy out of your discard to one of your bench Pokemon, and that's your supporter for turn. So I don't think you're really building around this, and having to play it every single turn seems extra bad as well. Now, one thing I will point out, I don't know if it's ever going to matter, but you can technically evolve from the Dark Morpeko V into the Lightning Morpeko V Max. Again, I'm not sure if there's a situation where that could be useful, but something to at least keep in mind when we do get cards like these. But yeah, this little guy, he looks a lot better than he plays. Probably not going to do a whole lot. Next up, we have Aggron V and V Max. If I do remember right, I think these cards were bad. Aggron's usually not that great in the TCG, so I wouldn't be surprised. But let's check out Aggron V here. This boy is chunky, 230 HP, 4 retreat cost, and it has a 5 energy attack cost for the second one. That's wild. First tag 90, 30 to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Not the worst thing in the world. Could be worse. Not too hard to power up. With Telescopic Sight, 60 to 2, 90, then 60 snipe 2 things. Not the worst thing in the world. I could, there's worse cards, but let's see. For 5 energy, 150 if your opponent's active, already has any damage counters on it, does 150 more. Okay, so I mean, that's actually pretty easy to pull off the damage part. The energy thing's a different story, but you know, we're one Zigzagoon ping away from setting this up, or Inteleon, that's probably going to be a likely option as well. Basically hitting 300 plus any existing damage, it means, I think a lot of the times this is going to be a one-shot. But for 5 energy, guys, ugh, that's a hard sell. Like, we could play double turbo energy thing that's coming out as well, but I feel like that card really throws off the math for this attack because we really want that 300 because that's already just shy of a one-shot. So we need those Inteleons or Zigzagoons to narrowly close the gap and get us those big one-shots on VMAXs. So I don't think we would ever be playing the turbo energy thing. I think this is probably just too much energy to ask for, if I'm just being honest though, guys. But yeah, we still have the VMAX to get to, so maybe that one is a little bit better. Again, I kind of forget what these cards did, but I did remember being a little unimpressed. So yeah, this guy is also V-Chonk, 330 HP for retreat cost, but same attack costs overall, 150 for 3. Discard the top card of your opponent's deck. Hey, not too bad. I've seen worse. Then 5 energy, 270. This Pokemon does 32 itself. Yeah, that's pretty bad, guys. If we just compare this to Eternatus VMAX or Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX, both those guys for 2 energy do the same thing. So it's like, why would we ever use this? I know every once in a while we do get Metal Weak Pokemon, but I don't really see the reason to play this. You know, even with Mew VMAX, I can hit this same amount of damage. I can actually hit more damage with that than this. So yeah, this evolution line strikes out a good bit, I think. I do kind of like the second attack on Aggron V a little bit. If we ever get some way at cheating energies into play a little bit easier for this guy, maybe I'll revisit this attack. But for the moment, I think this is pretty weak. Alrighty, so next up we have a Scavalier, and this is actually kind of a neat card. So 120 HP, but this ability says this Pokemon takes 100 less damage from the attacks of your opponent's Pokemon V after applying weakness and resistance. So that's actually a really cool ability. Buffs this guy effectively up to 220 HP, excluding any other things like Big Charm to, you know, creep that up even higher. But even though this is definitely a great buff, being a stage 1, having a base HP of 120 means that even once you buff this guy, a lot of the VMAXs are still hitting so much that they can one-shot you still, and the ability, while good, kind of in a vacuum, in practice, won't actually end up mattering, which is a bummer, but the ability is neat, if nothing else. And then the attack, it's kind of underwhelming. 90 then 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. 90 for 3 is really, really weak, guys. This really needed to be closer to, like, I think 140 or like 120, 130, something like that. That way you can two-shot certain things in the format, but 90 is just nowhere near enough, guys. If this was a completely different card that was a lot better, it'd be good. So yeah, neat ability, nothing special beyond that though. All right, so next up we have Zamazenta V, which was among one of the first cards we ever saw from these start decks. But 220 HP, has this ability. You can use this during your turn. Your turn ends, you discard your hand, draw 5. And that's attack for a metal 2 colors, does 120 plus 30 for each prize card your opponent has already taken. So overall, I think this is kind of a cool card. I actually think it even winds up being kind of like a better Zacian V in the late game, because of course Zacian V is going to top out at 230. Whereas if your opponent has taken 5 prizes, you are going to be able to hit for 270 with this thing. And that actually is going to be an increasingly important number to hit for, just because Pokemon V Stars are going to have what looks to be between 260 and 280 HP. So this damage range is actually pretty good going forward. But of course, your opponent does have to have taken 5 prizes. And a lot of times the ability on Zacian V is just going to be a little bit better than this. Though I do think this ability is fine. I could definitely see a world where you're playing just one copy of this, and instead of quick balling for a Zacian to Intrepid Sword, maybe have some energy in your hand that you want to dump away. And this could be a better way at leading the game if need be. So I actually do kind of have a soft spot for this card. It's not like mind-blowing, but I think this is among one of the more playable ones that we've actually looked at in this video. All right, next up we have another stage 2 that is probably going to break my heart. That's going to be Haxorus. Let's see. Okay, Axew. This actually is a card worth pointing out. Has an attack, flip a coin of heads. You search your deck for Haxorus, put it on this Axew to evolve it, then shuffle your deck. So of course, basic Pokemon are usually kind of irrelevant, but when they do have decent abilities that help your consistency, that's always something that is going to be appreciated. Now, I do kind of wish this attack was like evolve an Axew that you have in play. That'd be a little bit better, because you don't want to like evolve into Haxorus, then it just gets nuked and you lose your Haxorus. So that's something I don't like, but nevertheless, it's still, I think this is probably still better than having an attack that does like 10 damage for 1 or something like that. But of course, Haxorus, let's see this thing, 60 for 1, then 160 for 2, does 30 to itself. Okay, I mean, this second attack isn't the worst thing in the world. 160 is a relatively decent number. This 2-shots a lot of things. With Vitality Band, that 2-shots basically everything. But of course, guys, it does need 2 attachments. And there's just stronger Pokemon that attack for a lot more damage than this for the same amount. Even these Salamence that we saw like a set or 2 back hits for more than this for basically the same attack cost. So yeah, this guy is going to strike out, I think. But we do have Drampa V up next. I actually do kind of like the art on this guy. Let's see. 210 HP, fighting weakness, 2 retreat, 1 energy for 20, draw 2 cards. So kind of like the Tapu Koko V that we got from Sword and Shield. And then 160 for 3, discard the top 2 cards of your deck. I mean, it's like an okay 2-shotting number, but for 3 energy, that's going to be a little bit on the weak side. I know we have a little bit of flexibility in terms of how we might want to power this thing up since it is colorless. But if we're using a basic Pokemon that attacks for 3 energy, on what planet am I using this instead of Zacian V or even like Suicune V for 1 energy less? So yeah, Drampa seems pretty weak overall. All right, getting into our trainer cards. Looks like we only have 3 for today. First one is Team Yell's Cheer. I do remember this card getting revealed ahead of time, but you shuffle any 3 combination of Pokemon and supporter cards except Team Yell's Cheer from your discard into your deck. It kind of gives me Lusamine vibes, which of course was a card that did see play in a lot of control decks. Now this is a little bit different. You do get more cards, but they go to deck. And Lusamine did give you the option of getting stadiums as well, which this does not. But even still, being able to grab like 3 Yell Grunts and putting them back into your deck or something like that does seem pretty decent. Of course, if you are playing some sort of control deck, being able to get back whatever Pokemon you're using to control your opponent is going to be also, of course, useful. But I'm not much of a control player, guys. I've said this before in videos. It's definitely not my play style. I am not the person to look to if you guys want ideas on how to break this card and make it super competitive. I just know this will probably be used against me. I'm probably going to be furious. It's probably going to annoy me. But yeah, definitely this gives me vibes of something we could see in control if that ever does sort of emerge and become, you know, viable once again. So we have Barry, just draw 3. Nothing special, obviously. Then Marnie's Pride, which we did briefly touch on earlier when talking about Morpeko. So again, we get a base energy from discard, attach it to one of our bench Pokemon. So this is, I think, a little bit better than Bead as an example. Of course, that came out back in Sword and Shield and has done virtually nothing. And I don't really think Marnie's Pride is that much better. Having to attach to the bench is really annoying. You know, with this being a supporter card, I really don't think it's unreasonable to just ask that we attach it to anything. But yeah, unfortunately, that is not going to be the case. And unless you're playing that Morpeko V that we looked at earlier, I don't see a whole lot of reason to really play this. I'd much rather be playing Raihan, even though we are limited on the turns that we can play it. Of course, we get any energy like Marnie does, but we also get any card from deck as well, which I think immediately outclasses this card. So yeah, I know certain types of people will be very excited for this card. That's all I'll say about that. Marnie definitely seems to have a following, but yeah, as far as being a competitive card, this one is not it, I don't think. But that is going to be the cards here, or all the new cards at least, for the Start Deck 100 set collection. I don't know what you want to call this product line that Japan is getting. But yeah, even though a lot of these aren't super impactful, there are a couple of ones that we looked at today that I think do have a shot at being, you know, competitive. We don't, of course, have the whole Brilliant Star set list right now at the time of recording, so that also could definitely impact the playability of this cards. And of course, too, we are getting some reprints of some other pretty important cards, which is kind of cool to see. But yeah, that is going to be the cards we are checking out today, guys. I want to know what your thoughts are going to be on these down below. Do you think there were any that, you know, maybe I was a little bit too harsh on, or maybe I gave a little too much credit? Definitely, of course, sound off down below in the comments section. Let me know which of these cards you guys are going to be excited about. But as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is going to be largely my first impressions of these cards. And whenever my full Brilliant Star set review comes out, of course, I will have much more in-depth thoughts on all of these. So make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date when my Brilliant Stars coverage does begin. But of course, if you did enjoy today's video, be sure to smack that like button. And if you want to take your support to the next level, you can also become a patron at patreon.com/rarecandytcg or pick up some merch over at rarecandytcg.com. It would mean a lot. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.